Welcome to the booktube video where you find out Faye has legs. Because today I'm going through my shelves and I'm going to talk about all of the series that I have hauled in the last 6 months. And there's a lot. Hey bookaholics, so welcome back to another video. So today, as I said, we're going to be looking at all 15 series that I have bought in their entirety since May, my birthday. And there's a lot of series, and I'm only doing the series. I'm not doing the standalones as well. We would literally be here all day. So series it is, let's get started. The first series that I have is The Dandelion Dynasty by Ken Liu, which consists of The Grace of Kings, The Wall of Storms, The Veiled Throne, and Speaking Bones. I don't actually know a huge amount about this one, aside from that it is a genre-bending epic fantasy with some kind of steampunky elements, I believe, that is Asian-inspired, has an intricate magic system, and a lot of politics. And that was enough to sell me on it, I'm not gonna lie. Should I have looked up a synopsis? Possibly. But I don't really care. I'm really excited for it. It is huge. All of the books are massive in this series. Like, this one looks like an absolute sneeze of a book compared to the others, and it is over 600 pages. The last one is over 1,000. Do with that what you will. The next series is the Swords and Fire trilogy by Melissa Caruso, which consists of Tethered Mage, Defiant Heir, and The Unbound Empire. In this series, we are in a world where magic is running dry. It is a scarce resource. So any child born with magic gets taken to the Falcon Army, and that is where one of our protagonists has grown up. And then we are also following a young woman of privilege who also seems to have some magic. I don't know a huge amount more about it. I don't need to. It sounds great. Next up, we have some romantasy with the element of cadence duology, which consists of A River Enchanted and A Fire Endless. In this story, we're on some remote, fictional, Scottish-inspired island in which we have spirits that kind of help the land, but they are dwindling and disappearing. And therefore, the heiress to this area knows that she needs the help of a bard. But the only one around happens to be her childhood rival, who she needs to help save the land, and it's an enemy's lovers, I believe, or at least rival's lovers, and I am excited because I've heard good things. In with the duology, though somewhat darker, we have the Blood Gift duology by Annie Davenport, the first book being The Blood Trials and the sequel being The Blood Gift. In this story, we are in a very racist society, so content warnings here. We are following a young woman who has risen above her ranks, and her grandfather is actually, I think, one of the few black men who is in power, and then he is murdered. And she was going to take time off to grieve, but instead has decided that she's going to continue forth with these trials that she was about to partake in to become a warrior of some kind. And she is spurred on by this because someone says that they suspect they know who murdered her grandfather, and partaking in these trials would get her one step closer to her grandfather's murderer and revenge. Just in case you were getting bored of duologies, here's another one. It's The Reindeer People by Megan Lindham, the first book being The Reindeer People, and its sequel being Wolf Brother. This is one that is, I believe, Neolithic inspired, potentially, a while back, and it is set in kind of like an Alaskan inspired pre-colonization area, and we are following a young woman and her child as they flee from this man who desires them both. I don't know more about it. I picked it up because it's Megan Lindham, which is the other name for Robin Hobb. So hopefully I will enjoy these. Historical fantasy never normally lets me down. Sounds good. Deciding to go on the darker side of fantasy, we have the Prince of Thorns, The Broken Empire, I think, series by Mark Lawrence. This is when grim meets dark, apparently. It starts out with a very brutal scene and just keeps going. So this series consists of Prince of Thorns, King of Thorns, and Emperor of Thorns. He keeps getting promoted. In this series, we are following Jorg, who is despicable in every way, sense, and shape. I believe that it is like his ascent to power. I don't know if it's a corruption arc or a redemption arc. I'm really hoping for a corruption arc, I'm not gonna lie. But it sounds like he's already way past corrupt, so I don't know if he can get any more corrupt. But yeah, I've heard very, very mixed things about this one because of how dark it gets. And that was a selling point for me because I was like, wow, it gets that dark? I would like to try it. I went through a dark academia era earlier on in the year, and therefore I ended up buying a dark academia series. This is The Magicians by Lev Grossman. This is one that I believe is dark academia meets fantasy meets lit fic, which I'm here for. In this story, we are following a young man whose life is changed by a chance encounter after he meets someone who tells him that there is mysterious manuscript that contains the secret of a world of obsession and privilege, a world of freedom, a world of magic. Sounds good. I'm in for dark academia. And also there's a show, so if I like it, I can try out the show as well. This series consists of The Magicians, The Magician King, and The Magician's Land. Alright guys, halfway mark. We are at Lilith's Brood, some Afrofuturism by the wonderful Octavia E. Butler. You cannot go wrong with Octavia E. Butler, and this is my next foray into her work. This is about identity, I believe, as we are following a young boy, man, whatever you want to call him, who is of mixed race. He is of both human and this race called the Oankali, and it is about identity, about him discovering who he is, and it goes beyond gender, beyond family, and into a dangerous unknown. This is a trilogy that consists of Imago, Adulthood Rights, and Dawn. A collection of 4 novellas that I'm really excited for is the Tenseret series by Neon Yang. This is a collection of Asian-inspired lyrical novellas that are set in a world where there is a decline in an empire, and we unfurl a world that is new and blossoming following the fall of this empire. I'm really excited. I don't know if it's following the same character or if it's different characters in this world. I have been wanting to try more Neon Yang, and this seemed like a fantastic place to start. Ones that I have been incredibly excited to get to and will now have to postpone is The Quest for Heroes trilogy by Stephen Arion. This consists of the coward and the warrior, and in this story we are following a young man who went out on an expedition in his youth with a load of other heroes to save his people from this evilness that was in the north that was going to wipe them all out, and he came back the sole survivor of this mission and is hailed a hero. But it turns out that he was actually just a coward and did not want to fight at all, and he survived on pure luck. So it's very unfortunate for him when this evil begins to stir once more and everyone calls upon him for aid and putting together a mission to once again stop this evil that caused him so much trauma before. Apparently it's a very interesting discussion around trauma and heroics, and I'm really excited to try this series. But I have since been chatting to the author Stephen Arion, and he recommended that I go kind of like in publication order of his books, so I'm going to do that. So that means that these guys are a little bit further down the line for me now, but I'm still very excited to get to them when I do. As for an author that you guys will be really tired of hearing me talk about for now is K.S. Veloso, and in this one I have Legacy of the Lost Mage trilogy, which is her oldest self-pub series because her debut was the Chronicles of the Bitch Queen. I have a review for it. Go check it out. It's fantastic. Not the review, the book. The review's mediocre. And this is a series that is set in the same world as Wolf Yarrow, but it is following different characters. All of her books are set in the same world. I didn't need to know anything more about it, so I haven't actually looked up synopses. These are the last of her works that I've not read now, so I'm kind of terrified to pick them up because I don't want to not have any more K.S. Veloso books to read. But alas, here we are. This series consists of Jayeth's Eye, Aina's Breath, and Sapphire's Flight. A lovely friend of mine at work actually gifted this series to me, and this is a Nora Roberts magical realism, fantasy adjacent, witchy romance lit fic combo, and this is the Cousins Odoya, my Irish is questionable, trilogy, the first book being A Dark Witch, the second book being Shadow Spell, and the third book being Blood Magic. This is the story of a young woman in America who finds out that she has some hereditary magic and also ties to Ireland. So she goes back upon the death of someone, probably a grandmother, to visit all of her family in Ireland, only to find out that her inheritance is more than what it seems. I believe it's like a family connection, re-encounter style story along with witchy magical vibes, and I am really excited to get to this next spooky season. The next series that I have is the Black Hawks or the Articles of Faith by David Ragg. This is a comedic epic fantasy, I believe, kind of in the same vein as Kings of the Wild, where we have the Blackhawks, who are a group of mercenaries. I think they are like very much like a mixed bag of people all chucked together for a common purpose kind of story. And I believe that they kind of need to go fight against invaders. I mean, the humor I think is going to be amazing. I listened to an interview with David Raggs and then bought books because his humor just on the fly was already so funny that I knew that the tone of his books would definitely be to my liking. So I'm very excited to get to these. I think they're going to be an absolute blast. The next series I have is the Drowning Empire series by Andrea Stewart. This is an Asian-inspired fantasy series that is kind of like a more maritime style story. There is, I believe, a woman who is the daughter of an emperor, and the emperor has access to bone magic, which no one else can access, and then she does forbidden magic to try and save her country, especially given that her father won't recognize her as his heir. It's kind of like a screw the patriarchy style story, as well as being epic fantasy. So I'm excited for it. And this series consists of Bone Shard Daughter, Bone Shard Emperor, and Bone Shard War. Love this cover because it's almost there, folks. And next I have the Themis Files by Sylvain Nouvel. This is a sci-fi ish story that follows a young girl who, when she is small, she's riding her bike, falls down a hole and lands in this giant metal hand. We follow her as she is now an adult, and she is in fact researching this giant hand. This whole story is told in interview format, and we don't know who the narrator is or why they are so invested in the investigation that is going on. So it has like a mystery element to it. So we're trying to find out what on earth is this giant hand, and also who on earth is the interviewer, all from the perspective of this woman. Very excited because I have heard really good things about the way this is told, and I'm very picky with my sci-fi, so this has a lot to live up to. This series consists of Sleeping Giants, Waking Gods, and Only Human. And the last series I have on here is the Rook and Rose trilogy by M.A. Carrick. This is an adult epic fantasy that is Venetian inspired, and in it we are following a con woman who is trying to con this affluent family into believing that she is a long lost relative. However, she is conning exactly the wrong family because they are on heightened suspicion because their money is actually running dry. So we're following her. I think we're following members of the family, and we are also following another con man who is potentially either aiding or hindering our protagonist's con. This series consists of Mask of Mirrors, The Liar's Knot, and The Labyrinth's Heart. So those are all the complete series that I have purchased. I have also purchased The Lost Metal by Brandon Sanderson, which completes my existing set of the second era of Mistborn as well. So now I have a lot of series prepped up for me to read for next year, including this one. Very excited. But those are all the series that I have bought in the last 6 months. But that is everything for me today. So let me know if you've read any of these series and your thoughts on them, or if you're looking forward to my thoughts on any of these series as well, if they're some of your favorites. And that is everything for me for today. So thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll hopefully catch you in another one soon. Bye guys.